Hello and welcome to No Offseason. Some of you may recognize me or my voice from Parlay Paw. My name is Liv, and I'm doing this podcast with my dog Kai. This is a rebrand of Parlay Paw. For everyone that did listen to Parlay Paw, you can still find all the previous episodes on my page on the Believe Network and on YouTube. But this rebrand is something that I've been thinking about for a really long time, and something that I'm very excited to be able to start. Um, no Off Season focuses on athlete health and wellness, which is something that's kind of become more of a topic of discussion in the past few years as athletes have spoken out about their mental health and about taking, whether it be time off or different types of trainings to improve their mental health. And a lot of athletes have really wonderful teams of people around them that help support their mental health. And so this podcast kind of focuses on those people and focuses on what those people do to contribute to how an athlete is able to perform in their respective sport. Don't worry, Kyla will still be a part of this podcast. I am still going to talk about the biggest games of the weekend. We're still going to, go into a little bit of betting talk, but the focus of this podcast, of this rebrand, is going to be on athlete health, wellness, and getting to know an athlete beyond their individual sport and getting to know how they train, both, on and off the court, the field, whatever it may be. And I'm so excited. I have a lot of guests lined up to do this podcast, and a lot of them are people that I have admired for a very long time. And I think that as we continue and as we go through episodes, I think it'll be super educational for a lot of people, and just in terms of thinking about athletes beyond their abilities on the field. So I've got tons of great guests coming up, so definitely make sure you check my Twitter, my Instagram, and TikTok, which I will include in links on the YouTube description, so please watch on YouTube. And you can follow all of that for more updates. But our first guest is someone that I have admired for a very long time. She has worked with athletes for 3 decades, both as a massage therapist, but she is more known as a yoga coach. She uses the term coach for a wonderful reason, which you will hear from her about that reason. And she has created a platform specifically designed to help athletes improve their mobility, their balance, their flexibility, among other things. It's Gwen Lawrence. Gwen Lawrence is a yoga coach for multiple professional New York sports teams, including the Knicks and the Rangers and the Giants and the Yankees, among multiple other teams. Her years of experience have really been pivotal in shaping the health of the athletes that she has worked with. So I'm super excited to introduce her. This is Gwen Lawrence. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad that we could make this work. I guess my first question for you, I mean, you've built kind of your platform on yoga for athletes. Prior to all of that, can you take me through your personal yoga journey?
Yeah, so I grew up as a dancer from the age of 3 on, and I'm older than you. So back then, dancers really didn't do yoga. That was very polar opposite, two different types of people. So I went all through college dancing, and then after college, I went to school to be a medical massage therapist, and I started training people. And as fate would have it, I started massaging and training some famous people. And one person asked me, oh, if I send you to California to be a yoga teacher, to train to be a yoga teacher, would you teach me yoga too? And I was like, all right. So that's how it happened. And it couldn't have been, I mean, clearer that fate really like pounded me in the face, because everything, I still have everything else in my background, but that is really my primary focus right now.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. I'm not going to lie and say it was some magical journey. It was that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask who that person was?
Yeah. You're young, and a lot of young people don't even know who she is, but Glenn Close.
Okay.
So I don't know if you saw 101 Dalmatians or 102 Dalmatians. Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So what? I don't even know where to go from there. How do you just take like, someone like, oh yeah, can you go to California and then just teach me yoga? Like what, how did you go from being like, oh yeah, sure. Like what was, I'd be like, what? Like what was that whole mindset like? Why were
Yeah.
you so eager to do it?
I'm to this day a very avid and just thirsty learner. I just
Yeah.
want to learn new things all the time. I want to get certified in as many things as I can, and diplomas, and it just seemed like a natural progression. And why not? I at that point, I don't even think I had ever been to California. And yeah, I just decided to go for it. And I had just had a baby, and that was a little bit rough, but it worked out. Yeah.
So, had you had really any yoga experience prior to that?
Nope.
So,
I had, but I think this is what gives me an advantage, because I grew up very athletic, and my husband now, who was my boyfriend since high school, ended up playing pro baseball. So I was always around that. And, what ended up, really happening is that when I started introducing yoga to athletes, they're coming in the same way I did, with these preconceived notions that it's all hippies and all you do is stretch and om, and and it's really kind of weird. And so I think me coming in that way, that entry into that world, really helped me to better help my athletes understand it, if that makes sense. I was lucky enough, my first gig with a professional team was the Giants, and I had the full support of Coach Coughlin at the time. So he really made it mandatory, and that's what helps. They would all come in, most of them, because I started this, let's remember, before really anybody did, arguably 3 decades ago. And so they really didn't even know what they were doing, and clearly had those preconceived notions. So I approach it as less of a yoga teacher, and I call myself a yoga coach, so that they can feel more comfortable. And as you could probably see already, I'm not very quiet and graceful. I'm very loud and movie, and they respond more to that as well. And also the way that I would teach them was more like a coach, where it was, drilling things and motivating them. And, the whole approach made them more comfortable and, safe to try this. And I'm going to say 9.9 times out of 10, they would come out of it and say, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I couldn't have been, more off from the truth of what this was. And I really see the value in this. So that was really good. And then it started to snowball, and I started my school. And to date, I've trained people in, I think it's 19 countries now, and it's 34, 35 states. So, my school and my approach is really a lot more far reaching and easier than when I started.
yeah. What inspired you to start this power yoga for sports? It's been, as you said, 3 decades. And still, going very, very strong. And now you have people that are teaching athletes all over. But what was that thing that you were like, okay, this is something that people need?
Yeah, it was very much a tornado of a lot of different things. But primarily, as I mentioned before, my husband went on to play pro baseball at the minor league level. And since I've been with him since I'm 15, I was really embedded in his process. So I saw the process from, high school all the way up. I saw his training. He had an injury. I was there for his surgery, his rehab. And in the midst of all this, as a dancer and then becoming a massage therapist, there was all this understanding, and I have a really big appetite for anatomy. So, I started massaging some pro athletes and then watching them train, and watching my husband, who then became a coach, him train his athletes. And I think I remember specifically this one aha moment when I was with the New York Giants waiting to set up my massage table, and I was watching the trainers warm them up, and the entire team was doing the same warm up. And while I see the value as a team activity, in terms of the most efficient warm up in the least amount of time, because they're literally time to the second in everything that they do, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me that an O lineman with very specific duties on the field to be solid and push, and their bigger bodies, had the same warm up as a wide receiver or a cornerback who's all over the place, going deep to catch a ball. And so it didn't really make sense to me. And that, coupled with talking to my husband, and then I started to trickle in some yoga with his teams in the high school level. And then this started to develop. And really, my program differentiates from being, I always say, a normal yoga teacher, which isn't necessarily the right words, but I think everybody understands what I'm saying when I say that. The difference between normal yoga teacher and power yoga for sports teacher is you really have a solid understanding of the game and the needs of an athlete per sport, per position, so that you can create these programs for them that do separate them, and they're really high functioning for each duty on the field for each sport. And while swimming, it's all basically the same, things like baseball and football, there's drastically different needs per position. So that started to come into play, and then I developed the special facets for power yoga for sports, and that's really how it was born. It was of my massage, my dance, my anatomy, thirst, and the needs of an athlete, and just over time, just kind of became that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most difficult, both sport and position, that you have worked with?
I never really have a difficult time teaching any particular athletes. They get me, they understand me, I understand them, which they appreciate. And I've always been very embraced by every team, luckily. And I've never really had, I'm gonna say it's not necessarily a team or a sport.
Yeah.
Over time, my biggest challenge was the rookie football players.
Okay.
So this isn't college anymore. You got to listen. This is mandatory. And it seemed like every year I would, kind of butt heads with at least one rookie, and, have to prove myself and kick them out, which is another reason why it's different than a regular class. You would never kick someone out, but if they're not doing it, disrespecting you, or not listening, you're out, but yeah. If nobody ever asked me that question before. I've done a lot of interviews, and there's a lot of similar questions for obvious reasons, but no one ever asked me that one before. And I think that's a good answer. My rookie football players.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
My boyfriend is a hockey coach, and I was teaching his team, and the first time I taught his team, they took it as a massive joke, and I
Yeah.
felt so embarrassed. And then the next class, I was like, all right, like class starts at 10:30 a.m. You show up at 10:35, you're gone.
Oh yeah.
I like locked the doors, and so half the team was there. I was like, all right, the rest of you can go run. Like I
Yep.
don't
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I learned from Coach Coughlin that if you're 10 minutes early, you're 15 minutes late as far as he's concerned. And you're going through the process of power yoga for sports, and I'm going to be very clear with you. And as much as you want to take from me, teaching you how to have that voice and to really set yourself up for success on that first day. Like, you kick someone out on that first day and you make it very clear, because there's certain positions they can get hurt if they're
yeah,
fooling around, not taking it serious. And that's the other reason why you come in with more of that coaching voice, right? So that they're thinking, whoa, okay, this is not this is one of my coaches, and I would never disrespect my coach. So we'll go over some of that, and you will never feel embarrassed ever again. That's right. You will take control and demand of that room.
yeah. When athletes in their off season, their training looks different, obviously, than what it looks like in season. Are you working with athletes individually whenever they're in their off season, or is it just okay, you come back from, your off season? If football case, it's August, right? We're in spring training right now. Like, you better get back in it. What does that look like?
Yeah, so another good question. I teach my trainees, as well as I've come to understand what the training cycle is, what you just mentioned. So in season, their yoga looks a lot different than off season. And in the same respect, their pre-game, if they have a game tomorrow or 2 days from now, yoga looks very different from their post-game restorative, regenerative yoga. So you really do have to have an understanding, and that's part of the training as well, of the athlete's training cycle. And to more specifically answer your question, I was hired privately by many of my clients to work with them in the off season and just continue their gains. Anything that you do for a short period of time, you're going to get better, and you'll go down. You'll come up a little quicker, but it levels out. And a lot of them saw the value and would want to do it all year round. And when you're off season, that could be a little bit more aggressive, right? It could be a little bit more catered to their specific needs too, not only the sport, the position, but what are their weaknesses? What are their imbalances? And we can really clearly zone in on those. So it is helpful if some are motivated to work on their own.
Yeah. Is there a glaring difference that you've noticed in the athletes that do continue their yoga in the off season, and then the ones that come back for spring training or camp, whatever, that don't continue yoga in the off season? What does that look like athlete to athlete, and
Yeah,
how
I
do
have
you
a lot. Yeah, I have a lot of data over the years about the people that, whether they're doing my videos, they have me live, or just text me, what should I do? This is this, and I'll happily give them a program. But decreased injuries, 1,000,000%. When they're rookies and they're young and they're 20, anything goes. But as they age and they want to stay and they want to get paid, especially in the NFL, it's called the not for long, the NFL, and the average lifespan is 3 years. That's not cool. What am I going to do after that? So to try to maintain the longevity in their sport, most of them are very open to full season, because I have seen dramatic differences in injury. And to be honest with you, I've seen dramatic differences in someone doing power yoga for sports or regular yoga. While it does help, they're not focusing on what they need to be focusing on for that particular athlete. And sometimes, if you've been in the yoga world, I'm not sure how long you've been in the yoga world, but contrary to what a lot of people think, it's not a very welcoming community. There's a lot of competition with teachers, and there's a ton of ego. And I don't come from that school. I come from, share the wealth. There's enough for everybody. I can't possibly do everything. why wouldn't I want to share that, and I find that when an athlete goes to a yoga studio for that regular yoga, the ego is there with that teacher, and ooh, this athlete's here, well, I'm going to show him a thing or two, and they're not really doing the best for that athlete, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does make sense. And I've only been teaching for 3 years, but I've been practicing for probably 10 now. And I've gone to a lot of different studios, had a lot of different yoga instructors, and it's definitely interesting to see the difference.
Yeah.
And from instructor to instructor, and just there's some that, I took their class once and I was like, never again. And then there's some that, I loved. When you are talking about preventing injury, have you witnessed an injury from one of your, whether it be someone on a team that you've coached or an individual that you feel that you could have prevented or that has changed the way you have taught?
Not changed the way I've taught, but since I'm older now and phasing out, going to the teams and doing more of my trainings for people, well, let me start here. Because no one else will believe me. I go, his arm's gonna be hurt. I said last July that DeGrom was gonna be hurt again, and he got hurt again. I have this curse and a gift of seeing imbalances in people and knowing what to do. And your original question was, have I seen them come in with injuries?
Have you seen, them develop injuries that you were like, I could have prevented that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so Power Yoga for Sports system has 6 facets, and they are balance, and that's physical balance, as well as symmetry of the body. So an asymmetrical body, while you always are handed, right-handed, left-handed, you have a dominant side, you don't want the symmetry of the body to be like this. You want it to be like that. A body like that will inevitably end up injured. And I try to give the analogy of a car, and say you have a worn out tire or imbalanced tires, and you're driving from New York to Florida, you're going to have a flat tire. You're going to keep pulling to the right, and you're not going to be able to relax and just go with it because your car is just offline. And it's the same thing with the body. It's going to go until something blows. So I teach my trainees how to spot those imbalances, and it's one thing to spot them, but then to have that ability to, okay, what do I do now to fix that? Right.
Yeah.
And other 5, just to throw them in there, are, so it's balance, it's functional strength. As you know, as a yogi, you're not really using weights in your yoga practice, but you are doing functional strength work with chaturangas and all kinds of things. So it's balance, strength, flexibility. And then the other 3 keys, which are critical for athletes to have, are mental toughness, focus, and breath work. Without all of those, they're just not the complete athlete. So that also sets us apart from other yoga, but that balance is really how you learn and draw people in. So I text or DM athletes to this day, and I go, your right trap is so tight and your left low back is pulling, and I'll get DMs back, or when can I see you? Or what do you mean? And so if you can spot that, they're going to be super intrigued, and that's really going to set you apart as well.
Yeah. When you talk about mental toughness, how do you teach that? Like, how is something, I feel like that's something people learn or develop, and you see it very clearly, for me, I see it very clearly with pitchers in baseball. It's they're
just going to give you that
laser focus, like the mental toughness is very evident there. But how, that's a pillar for you. How do you teach that in an athlete? Do all athletes have it to begin with?
Right. So on the flip side of that you see, and that's my best example is the pitcher. It's the most clear, but you see that they have it. You also see the minute they lose it.
Yep.
Have you ever seen one just lose it? Then
Yep.
they're out of their head. It's over. I don't care if you pitch 102. It's over for you that day until you can gather it together again. And how I teach it specifically is more yin holds. So I'll make them do a frog or a pigeon for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And they have to find a way to find comfort in an uncomfortable situation with their focus, with their breathing, and sit and stay. And I don't let them come out unless there's some, serious pain, but I don't let them come out. You have to find a way. You can't walk off the field when it's, 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter and you're down by 3 points. You can't do that. You can't walk off the field in the top of the 9th just because you're losing, but you have to find a way to stick to it. And that's how I make them do it. And it's rough for them. It's rough, but they learn. They're like, what do you mean we're going to do this for 5 minutes? And I have many of these that have been sabotaged by my athletes. There's always one in my pocket.
Oh my gosh. What is the most surprising or unexpected thing that an athlete has ever said to you, whether that be, a mindset before a class or a feeling after class? Is there something that in your experience has stood out to you as one of those memorable moments?
Nothing really stands out. It's an overall satisfaction. I don't really think I've ever left a class teaching athletes where they were bummed out that they did it. Some have to be roped in to do it. And I tell them this, I know coming here might not have been your choice, but you will never leave thinking that was a waste of my time. You'll always leave thinking I feel much better. And I think that that's just an umbrella of what I've never really had anybody shock me. I'm very not shockable. I have 3 sons. I've been in this business forever. I'm very non-shockable.
You've seen it all.
I've seen it all. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I first started with the Giants, I was a massage therapist first. And this is decades and decades ago. This would never even fly now, but they had me set up my my massage table right in the middle of the locker room. And even then I thought, this is a test.
Yeah.
Test to see, my fortitude and my attitude. And I just put my head down, blinders on, did my job and left. But yeah, so I don't think there's much I'll think on that one and get back to you, but I don't think there's anything that's been said to me that was shocking.
Fair enough. I mean, I think you definitely are in a profession where you have to expect everything.
Yeah.
So that definitely lends to a non-shockable factor.
Yeah. You do it's a different world now. And I don't know if I could have ever started what I do if I had to start now. It's really dicey and really hard for people now to be in the athlete world, to be in the yoga world. And that's why you really have to come in headstrong and confident and demand that respect right away.
Yeah. So when people are starting out now, whether that be as a yoga instructor or, a power yoga for athletes instructor / coach, or even someone who has never done yoga before in their lives, what would you tell them before going into that process?
Clear their mind of any preconceived notions and just go in open, commit to the process. It's not going to happen in one yoga class, and you might become undone and hurt a little after the first couple, but it's sort of building a new foundation. No matter if you're just doing yoga or an athlete, you would never come in, buy a house and decide I'm going to remodel the kitchen and just put the new kitchen right in front of or on top of the old kitchen. You gut it and you break it down, and you have to have that kind of mindset that everything might change. every perspective might change for you, physical, mental, emotional, and just be open to that and to maybe building a new foundation and brand new shiny kitchen that will last for decades. A lot of analogies because athletes tend to get it more with an analogy.
Yep. Yep. I think that's most people. I think most people, or at least for me, I tend to
Yeah.
get it. You see it. You see it more clearly.
Yeah.
I can see the kitchen.
Yeah.
See
And
the
yeah, I'm not going to put the new cabinets in front of the old one. That's bulky. That takes up room. I'm going to
Yep.
start clean. Right. So just an open mind, just be open to the process.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. This was
You're welcome.
fantastic. I can't wait to get started with you very soon.
And I brought this just to show you, but this is my book that has to do with athletes. So if anybody's interested in some of the basics of what I do and is not training, this is the sort of Bible of it all.
I guess, okay, so now that I see that book, I actually have a last question.
Okay.
I saw the little sticky notes in there.
Yeah.
So you mark your own book.
I mark my own book. Isn't that amazing?
What can you possibly, I mark my books because I have thought, I'm like, I'm reading it and I'm like, I have a thought about something. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. You already know everything that's in it. How do you,
Yeah.
why do you mark your own book?
I'm very much a book person when it comes to learning so that I can mark and fold and underline. But in mine, that's a good question too. You have some of the newest questions I've ever had. It's for ease and quickness. So I know what I need to show people. And instead of going, let me see if I can find that. That is, I look and I see, hydration, this is the P chart, and it's just quick. So that's the reason, but that is a good question.
Thank you. Well, yeah, that was my last question. I saw that I was like, I don't know if I mark a book that I wrote. Like,
yeah, totally. Yeah, I'll give you a 10 on all your questions. Very good. Very original.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I will let you get back to your busy schedule. This will be published in 2-ish weeks. So August 14th is when I'm planning on having this episode come out.
August 14th is a great day. That is the 40th anniversary of my husband and mine first date. So that's a good day.
I would love to say that I planned that, but I didn't. Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary of your first date. A little premature. Are you going on vacation to like celebrate that or what?
We'll build that in, but it's our just summer break happened to fall on that day and 40 years. So we'll build that. I'll push for a little present.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Heck yeah. Always. Always. Well, thank you so much, Gwen.
So nice to meet you. So sweet. And I look forward to working with you.
Yes, me too. Thank you. So to end each episode of No Off Season, I am going to do, it's called The Scoop with lovely Miss Kyla here. Yes, she is in a cone. She had glass fall on her foot. Yeah. And she had another dog attack her yesterday and bite her. So she cannot be licking any of her wounds. There's always things that bother me, honestly. There's a lot. But I'm going to narrow it down to one thing that bothers me every week, and I'm going to give myself permission to rant about it until Kyla finishes this scoop of peanut butter. This is The Scoop with Kyla, and today's scoop theme is Apple TV baseball broadcasts. Ready? Okay, she's looking. Okay, so the Giants played on Apple TV last night. I'm a Giants fan. I did not watch the game because it was on Apple TV. Yes, it was on at 10 p.m. when I was asleep, but also it was on Apple TV, so I was not even motivated to stay up to watch the game. The Yankees were on Apple TV a couple days ago. My boyfriend's a Yankees fan. I came in the house, and he was watching the game without the sound. Why? Because the Apple TV broadcast sucks. And I feel like I have a little bit of a reason to say that because I was a broadcast major in college, and everything they tell you not to do in school, Apple TV does it on the broadcast. First of all, they don't even know how to pronounce the players' names. They pronounce multiple Yankees players' names wrong. When I told my boyfriend, just put the sound on because it's weird watching it without the sound, they pronounced multiple names wrong, A. B, if you're watching the game on Apple TV, you're a baseball fan, right? You're a fan of whatever team. She still has some left, by the way. I can still go. You're a fan of the team. No one is going to watch a game on Apple TV if they don't like baseball or they don't care about the team. The broadcasters talk to you like you are a plebeian, like you know absolutely nothing about the game. And if you're watching, you probably know just as much, if not more, than the broadcasters do. So I think MLB should get rid of their partnership with Apple TV because it is honestly an absolute disgrace to baseball fans, and they are losing viewers and losing people who like the game because the broadcasters don't know how to broadcast baseball. And would you look at that? What a pretty clean spoon. Good job, Kyla. That is it for episode 1 of No Offseason. Hopefully episode 2 she'll have her cone off, but I can't make any promises. Episode 2 we have a very special guest, someone who I had the pleasure of working for and someone who is truly an inspiration, so make sure that you don't miss that. We'll see you next week.